Hello. Yeah. So welcome, Marlon. So you're the only online participant in this panel. So we would like to open the second session of this morning, which is a panel debate on drivers and barriers and effective policies and strategies to support the role of bioenergy. This will be co-chaired by Paul Bennett and myself. My name is Birger Kerckow. I'm working for the Agency for Renewable Resources in Germany. Paul, introduce yourself.
Yes, now you know my name. I'm Paul Bennett. Kia ora. I work for Research Institute in New Zealand. Hello? Yeah. I work for a Research Institute in New Zealand that's focused on forestry and forest products.
Okay. Well, we already had quite nice and very interesting presentations this morning. And so, well, we have on this panel, we have the speakers of the first morning session. In addition, we have Maria here and some online Marlon Arraes from Brazil. And well, for Maria and Marlon, as I have not been presenting before, we would like to give them the opportunity for introduction, and we would like Georgiadou. So Maria Georgiadou works for the European Commission, Directorate General Research and Innovation, as a senior expert. And well, she has been active in the area of bioenergy and biofuels for quite some time, I would say. I think at least, well, I would say for the last 15 years, because I think for the last 15 years, we have been collaborating in one way or another in working groups, in projects, and so on and so on. So Maria, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Birger. Indeed, I work in the renewable fuels, renewable energies, research and innovation policy, strategies, and the way forward in the European Commission. I guess goes like that. The big one. Okay, thank you. So for the European policy, it is a lot for the climate neutrality. And here I have one part, the overall policy, European Green Deal. And actually, this European Green Deal tells us that in 2030, we have to save 55% of the greenhouse gas that all the sectors of the economy is emitting, and by 2050, will be climate neutral. And it means that we have to convert all the economy sectors, not only the energy, but the industry, the transport, the agriculture, the buildings, etc., in a way that it becomes a sustainable economic future. There is growth, but sustainable growth, and in a fair way, not to leave anyone behind. This is just transition, and this is the principle in the European Commission. To do that, we had put a legislative proposal package together, which is called Fit for 55. And this includes many legislations. Here I put, it includes 15 actually. Here I put the that are most connected, related to the renewable fuel. And the most important, of course, is the Renewable Energy Directive. And there we have specific targets for advanced biofuels, biogases, and RFNBOs. The terminology in the Commission is renewable fuels of non-biological origin, and this includes both synthetic renewable fuels, those that made from carbon or and hydrogen, and hydrogen itself as a final product. And there are targets for the reduction of the greenhouse gas intensity in the transport, and the targets for how much hydrogen it will be in the industry by 2030, where the Renewable Energy Directive focuses, and next, sustainability criteria for bioenergy that goes to heat and power. We have specific packages for the aviation and for the fuel, with specific targets again for 2030, but these go beyond 2030 up to 2050. and other legislative proposals like the effort sharing regulation with greenhouse gas emissions targets and the ETS, the emissions trading scheme, where the polluter pays, meaning the emissions that are emitted from the various sectors have a fee, have a kind of penalty. These are used to finance renewable energy projects in the area. We have, of course, the Commission CO2 emissions. So it doesn't work. So either I will speak or. Okay. So the emission standards are important also, both for life and equity. Most of these proposals have been adopted or provisionally agreed, like the RED 3 now, and this is going to be accepted or published in the official journal of the Commission by end of this year or at the beginning of next year at the latest. But we have some pending still, like the Energy Taxation Directive, which is something very important for the renewable energy and the renewable fuels, where it will be like a tax exemption for these areas, but it is still ongoing. Here I put forward some other policies. So we have policies for the biomethane. This is under the Repower EU plan, and the target is 35 billion cubic meters annually by 2030 domestic production of biomethane. We support this with an industrial partnership, which is called the Biomethane Industrial Partnership. We have the Net Zero Industry Act. This is an act where it says actually made in EU. Clean energy technologies made in EU. Supported. There will be strategic technologies like the biogas and biomethane, and non-strategic technologies that include sustainable alternative fuel technologies. We have the strategic technologies for Europe platform. This actually is again, it has been announced in June, and actually it will give 160 billion of new investments taken from existing and new instruments. Money like the InvestEU, the Innovation Fund, the Horizon Europe, etc., to do what? To boost investments in clean and technologies, along with digital and biotechnologies. And the clean technologies include the renewable energy, and this includes also the RFNBOs and the sustainable alternative fuels. And also we can see that we have special policy for the hydrogen and the decarbonized gas markets package, which means that from 5% use of renewable gas today will go to 66% in 2050, and that could be both organic, biomethane, biogas, or RFNBO, non-organic. Thank you. And then we support, here I can say that we have our multi-annual MGOR program. Okay, multi-annual MFF. Don't have a problem. Now, okay.
Thank you.
Awesome, merci. Alors, we have the multi-annual financial framework program, which is actually 1 trillion for the 21 to 27 period, and 800 billion for the Next Generation EU, which is the resilience and recovery facility to cover the economic crisis. 1.8 billion, 30% of which goes to climate actions, meaning around 400, 500 billion go to these climate actions. This includes, of course, is not only for renewable energy and renewable fuels, but includes renewable fuels as well. And we have something like 15 billion in Cluster 5 Energy, Climate and Mobility to support research and innovation actions, including actions on renewable fuels. And for your information, I put here topics that we have in the work program 23-24 that are still open. And they cover renewable fuels. They cover also biorefineries under international cross-cutting studies on the outlook of industrial capacity for biofuels, etc., and all this that the Commission is quite active in the area and tries to support the deployment of the renewable fuel technologies, starting now and going to immediate targets of 2030 and then further on 2050 for climate neutrality. With this, I conclude my introductory statements. More information you can find in recent publications on innovative biomethane and renewable fuels result packs that we have published earlier this year. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thanks a lot, Maria, for this nice short introduction. We will have a panel discussion between all afterwards, but if there are, well, just one or two questions for clarity or so, please go ahead. So if there are short questions, we can ask them now. Okay. Georgiadou.
Thank you for the presentation, Maria. In terms of the hydrogen, for hydrogen reducing the emissions intensity of your gas grid, I was wondering, is the plan to blend hydrogen into natural gas? And if so, what are your thoughts on the difficulties that are there in blending and what limits do you see? And if not, what are the plans for hydrogen related infrastructure?
Actually, the plan is to use hydrogen as such. Now, starting, of course, blending, as you say, there are limitations. You cannot go above a certain limit for the time being because of the nature of the molecule, but then you need to build a new infrastructure. We have something which is called Clean Hydrogen Joint Undertaking. This is a partnership, a private-public, meaning the Commission, together with the industry, join forces and money, and it's about 2 billion there to build actually production, distribution, and use of hydrogen. And this, the question that you put forward is part of the strategy under the joint undertaking. But for the moment, you can just blend very small percentages.
Okay, thank you. See no more questions, so over to Paul for introducing the second speaker.
Okay.
Thank you, Maria, again.
Yes, thank you, Maria. Apologies for the rearrangement of the furniture. Is this on?
No. Perhaps this should be off.
So let me introduce the next speaker. It is Marlon Arraes Jardim from Brazil. He's Director of Biofuels at the Ministry of Mines and Energy. Marlon, are you there?
Yeah, Paul, I'm here.
Okay, if you can give us a short overview, that'd be really good. Thank you.
Okay, first of all, thank you very much for the opportunity to say a few words. I am aware that you reshaped your workshop just to have us speaking here, and it's very good. We are very thankful for this effort. And I have a couple of slides here to show you as well. How can I do it? May I just share my screen? I need.
Yes, sir.
I don't know. It's not. I'm not allowed to.
We are sharing your slides now.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Just a couple of seconds.
Okay.
You can share your slides now.
Okay. Thank you. just numb, not that.
That was short.
Marlon. Thank you.
That is too short, too brief. Thank you very much. Well, I have some slides here. Once again, thank you very much for reshaping this workshop for just the words of Brazil here. And on behalf of the Ministry of Mines and Energy, we are very thankful for that. Well, just as a context, we have here in Brazil for bioenergy and as driver of our policy of biofuels, we have an overview, which is our national biofuels policy. And this program and this policy has, as some of you may already know, we have three main axes for this policy. The first of all is the national target for reducing emissions of the fuel market, of the fuel mix, for a period of 10 years. This is a mandate, a target that is imposed by our National Energy Policy Council. The second axis of our policy of biofuels here is the individual and voluntary certification of biofuel production. This certification is based on a life cycle analysis through which biofuel producers receive an efficient score in terms of net emissions per unit of energy, and also the CBIO, the decarbonization credit. This is the financial instrument, the ticket and the credit that is issued by the biofuel producer that must be acquired by distributors in this organized market, this stock exchange market, in order to fulfill their own goals and their own targets. Regarding to the targets, we have just completed the public consultancy process of the targets of this carbon intensity reduction for our energy, for our fuel mix for the next 10 years. And we have, by the law, the obligation to fix this target for this 10 years period, at minimum. So we established this 11% reduction target of our carbon intensity in comparison with 2018, which is our number of reference. We have already established a goal for and internationally at the UN we have a panel there, our energy compact, with a compromise of reducing 10% of its carbon intensity till 2030. And the certification of biofuels production is a technologically neutral. We have this life cycle analysis from multi-tank with efficiency scores per producer, and each producer that is certified, we have today 277 units of ethanol producers against 357 authorized producers in Brazil that is certified. Biodiesel, we have 32 mills certified against 56 in operation. And biomethane, we have 3 authorized certified producers among 4 that is already authorized by the national agency to sell and commercialize biomethane. Regarding TBU, our decarbonization credits, it is the instrument of fulfilling this target of our view. It is based, as I said, in a life cycle analysis on a voluntary basis for certification. It is traded in our stock exchange market. 1 CBU corresponds to a reduction of 1 ton of carbon dioxide equivalent. It is based on the volume of each invoice of biofuel sold. We have here the invoice that the biofuel producers have against the fuel distributors. And the fuel distributors may buy CBU in order to comply with their individual targets every year. So we have this target for the 10 years period, then the global, the national target, it is splitted by those distributors in a proportion of their own market share of fossil fuels. And then they have to buy that CBUs, that amount of CBUs, otherwise they are liable to penalties and sanctions. Other investors and third parties may be able to trade CBU, and our intention is that it could one day improve its liquidity and fungibility. Also, CBIO implies an additional income to producers and importers. In addition to the revenues from biofuel sales, we split the physical product, the biofuel product, which has its own market and dynamics of commercialization. We split this to the commercialization of CBIO. As a overall prospect of what's happening today, we expect a financial volume of more than $700 million this year, which means that each CBIO is traded in an equivalence of $23 roughly. And this represents an extra income for ethanol producers, for instance, of nearly 15 cents of Arraes per liter, which is roughly 5% of the price of the ethanol that is sold. So this is something that really counts on their margin and something beginning to be a significant aspect of this market mechanism, and that is giving some incentives to those producers. So that's the dynamic. We have these individual targets for fuel distributors, and we have the certification in this process. Biofuel producers, with their efficiency scores individually, they can emit CBIOs, they can issue CBIOs that is sold in stock market, and then we have this market going on. As following this energy transition, we have nowadays the core of what I'm saying here, the Fuel of the Future program, the Combustível do Futuro, which is a bill that was proposed by the government. We sent to the Congress last month, and this project is going to be evaluated by the Congress, and it's now in an ongoing process of this process of approval in Congress. So the main objective here of the Fuel of the Future is the integration of the National Biofuels Policy, RenovaBio, and our automotive regime, what we call here Rota 2030, Rota 2030. And we have also another program, the Air Pollution Control Program for motor vehicles. The manufacturers in Brazil must comply with the targets of pollutants in Procove. So we need to integrate those mobility programs in order to have a very efficient approach to carbon mobility. And as I said, the driver in this process is our vocation for bioenergy production. So the automotive regime will include in this proposal the well-to-wheel based life cycle analysis concept as a goal for setting the automotive industry to. The automotive industry will have a goal, a target, corporate target in grams of CO2 per kilometer, grams of CO2 of greenhouse gases emissions. We have the harmonization of this automotive regime to our Procove.
Marlon, Paul,
sorry?
Could I ask you to reach a conclusion, because we really want to get into the panel discussion, and we think that's a really important part of this process. So
yes.
Just 1 minute, please.
Thank you. Okay. I am just finished this slide because this brings a broad perspective of this Fuel of the Future program. So this program and this bill that is proposed wants to reach a SAF policy for Brazil. We have established in this proposal the targets of reducing carbon dioxide emissions. We have not a volumetric mandate, but an emission targets mandate. Also, we have this X of carbon dioxide capture and storage technology regulation. This is something that we don't have today, the regulatory framework for CCS. Also, we have this, the national green diesel policy. We know that for heavy duty vehicles, it is very important to address the decarbonization in this sector. So we are introducing a mandate for green diesel. And also we want to increase the limits of ethanol mixture in gasoline. We have a range today from E18 to E27.5 we want to reshape this this range to E22 to E30. So we are going to assess this expansion for E30. So I leave you here. This is the main proposal that we have in Congress now for our mobility today. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Marlon, for a very clear presentation. I'd just like to invite a couple of very short questions for clarity, if there are any. If not, we'll get into the panel discussion. Any questions? No? Obviously very clear, thank you. So we'll get into the panel discussion. The idea is for the panel to have a discussion amongst themselves. We'll invite questions from the floor and questions from online. So if we can open up with a question around.
Yes, this one.
So if we can open up with a question around, we were supposed to be opening up with questions around what are the benefits for biofuels, but I think we all understand what the benefits are. We're all here and we're all bought into the bioenergy agenda. So I'm going to start with a question around the challenges. What do we see the challenges and what do we need to overcome those challenges? We heard from Jeremy earlier that there is some great things going on in bioenergy, but it's just not fast enough. So what do we need to do to accelerate bioenergy deployment? So I'll ask all the panelists just one challenge and one thing we can do about it. Who wants to start?
Maria volunteered.
There you go.
Okay. For biofuels, I think advanced biofuel technologies, the challenge is the deployment, at least in the European Union, but I also see in the rest of the world. So the technologies do not take up as fast as expected, and the time is, the clock is ticking out. The time is running out. We are already close to 2030. There is 2-3 years to build a plant after the permit is obtained. So where are we? We have very small deployment of advanced biofuels, less than 1% in the EU, but the other experts here can say about the world. So that's a challenge. What we need to do now to overcome the challenge is to put a strategy there, a solid strategy. I saw in the EU there are bits of parts of strategies that can be identified under the various policy packets. I talked about the REPowerEU that helps the biomethane. I talked about the NZIA that helps also the biomethane, but also the other sustainable alternative fuels. And I also talked about the STEP, the Strategic Technology Europe platform, that gives to clean technologies, including the sustainable fuels, advanced biofuels and renewable fuels. Together, it gives a focus that will be supported within these 160 billion that the STEP foresees. But what I see as a challenge to put them all together and to make a clear strategic roadmap that will get us from point A, where we are at here now, to point B, where the policy, the EU policy drives, like the RED III, like the ReFuelEU, like the FuelEU Maritime. Policy is not enough. We need the strategic roadmap.
Jeremy, do you want to respond to that? Okay, well, we can use that microphone for the time being.
Sure, yeah, I'll just build on that. Absolutely, we need deployment, but prior to deployment, we need further technology R&D through demonstration. We need the technology proven, and there's still many technologies that haven't been sufficiently proven at scale. So it's goes hand in hand. Thank you.
Jeremy, over to you. You were very keen to jump in there.
So I agree completely with these 2 points. I was not countering these other points, But if we're looking globally, one of the pieces I think that really needs to happen is expanding production of biofuels to lots of different markets around the world, learning from what we've done in the EU, in the United States, and in Brazil. And I'll use India as an example. So India ramped up ethanol supply from around 1 or 2% to coming close to 12% in just a 4 or 5 year period. Biodiesel in India is almost non-existent right now, but there's a lot of potential there to use cooking oil and other residues to accelerate production there. And that's something that other regions in the world have done. And even on the ethanol supply side, learning from countries like Brazil, there's ways to make that production more efficient, integrate technologies to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. So this piece around advanced technologies, I agree, but there's also more that can be done with what we already know around the world.
So if I have to identify maybe 2 challenges. So, so I agree that acceleration is a challenge, but we have to be clear that, for instance, in France, bioenergy is the first source of renewable energy currently. So the situation is maybe not that bad as other renewable energy. And so first challenge is that everybody sit together to discuss about this topic, because it's not only a question of energy, but it's a larger question. And second challenge is what is called territorialization. So it's the declination of a national plan at a local level. It's quite a difficult topic for all renewable energy, but it's a specific topic for bioenergy. You have really to take into consideration the specific situation of all facility consumers.
Thank you. And yes, I agree with my fellow co-panelists here. If I was going to jump out one, a big challenge that I see is really the marketing of bioenergy. There's a lot of misinformation out there, and I know IEA Bioenergy is looking to combat that issue as well. And I just think it is difficult to market because it's so big and complex, and there are so many things that people that are against biomass can latch onto. Like, they think bioenergy and they think we're just going to cut down trees. And it's hard to get into a very quick discussion about that. And then people think, oh, you're just burning trees. No, that's not it either. But again, it's hard to make that case very succinctly in, a marketing platform. So I think combating that misinformation and building support from consumers for bioenergy projects is a big issue as well.
Thank you. I totally agree with you, Jardim. I think that's the biggest issue that we're facing. There's so much negativity in the press, on all sorts of media networks around bioenergy and how it's bad for the planet. So I think that's the really biggest one. Mark, you got a view?
Yes.
What's the biggest challenge and what do you need to overcome it?
Well, I think, thank you very much for the opportunity. In Brazil, I believe that we have one of the main challenges is energy prices and fuel prices. This is a very sensitive topic. Although we have RenovaBio, as I mentioned, to drive and to orient this tendency and this perspective of reducing carbon intensity using biofuels, we have in practice here a society and a government and always worried about fuel prices, and every short impact in this signifies not a turnaround, but some challenges to advance even more with our policy of using more and more biofuels. So I think the challenge of prices in a country like Brazil, we don't have budget, we don't have $369 billion to put in as a IRA program in the US or the climate action budget. We don't have that money. So we need to deal in a market basis, in a free market basis market. So this is very challenging for us, because every time this imposes an inflation to the consumer, this goes back and we have these drawbacks, withdrawals in our tendency. Last year, we approved a tax reform on fuels that was in the opposite direction. We favored, and we see this in our energy balance of the last year, an increase of fossil fuels market in comparison with the previous year. So this is a challenge for us, the cost of energy transition. And we think and we know that for us, we have to pile up some policies. We have some different incentives coming from different perspectives. And we think that because we don't have budget, a specific budget for that, mandates are the best policy, and the challenge is to advance those mandates and in these policies in order to get this energy transition and the bioenergy production going forward and moving forward. That would be.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for this statements. I think linked to this question, what is the biggest challenge is what is the right policy approach to address this challenge? And maybe you could also focus on one. And Marlon, you just said one. You put gave a priority for mandates. Jim explained, well, you had mandates in the past. You have shifting the approach. So what's the view here? What's the best policy approach, or to really to achieve something? Well, Georgiadou, please.
I'm not going to say it's the best policy approach, but the first one that jumps to mind is something that's technology agnostic. That way it's fair across the board and relies on something that really equates all types of technologies, that's based on really sound life cycle analysis and refers to carbon intensity. So in Canada, we have the Clean Fuel Regulation coming out, and what it does is incentivize producers and importers of fossil fuels to lower the carbon intensity of the fuel they put out into the market. And it gives them choice on how they want to do it. And it's not just biofuels. You can do, refinery upgrades, site upgrades, energy efficiency, things like that. But I think it puts bioenergy on a level playing field.
So I'll build off that, and I agree completely. The performance-based standards, mission, is this working? Are critically important. I'll add two pieces on the side, because we thought on the advanced biofuel side, I like these policies because it allows for advanced biofuels and it does provide that benefit. But for some of these newer technologies, I think you do need programs in addition, like carve-outs that we've seen in the EU in the Renewable Energy Directive, or in the Inflation Reduction Act. There are different pieces of tax credits for CO2 reduction or for hydrogen that can also participate. The third piece I'll add, if it's a jurisdiction that's just starting with policies, there is a pathway we've seen in other jurisdictions. You don't always start with GHG performance-based standard. It requires a bit of sophistication to get to that point. And so there can be a role, at least at the beginning, to start again with some of these mandates with the intention of moving into these performance-based. So it's a bit of a, for me, a bit of a journey across these pathways.
Yes, I think we have to admit the complexity of the subject, and it means that the energy policy and the energy and the financial help and the requirement also become. And I think you have to your goal. You have to specific for emerging projects, general policy, emission, and also need to maybe accept that some policies that are good at certain moments need to be changed, and you have to accept it's not that easy. Some will win, some will lose, but you have to accept that this is also a path, and maybe what you do now is not perfect, but it's a way the final goal. So not complexity, in fact.
Okay, I will say that we need to accelerate what is available now, and then to invest in the future upcoming technologies, as Jim said, because what the energy mix is today is different from what it will be in 2030 and very different from what it will be in 2050. So upcoming technologies that are emerging from research and innovation are vital for the future. I think we all recognize the complexity. We all recognize that it should be, the policies should be based on the performance, but I will put all the elements of the performance, not only the environmental, but also the economic, because what you do, it has to be in a cost-effective way, and also the social, it has to be, I mean, at least replacing jobs that are going to be lost because of this transition. So it should be a fair transition.
Marlon, do you have anything to add to this?
Well, this is perfectly aligned with we have in Brazil, because the perspective of having a cost-effective program is really in this renewable policy and in the Fuel of the Future program, because we want to have the least cost decarbonization possible, the broader decarbonization possible with the least cost for the society. So that perspective is really important for us. And I think that the main challenge is to drive this in a process that goes step by step, year by year, achieving results and giving trust to this perspective and to this process, and engaging all the stakeholders in the same way, because the detractors and the critics of our policy, the obligated parties that we have here in this in Renova, for instance, they criticize that we are not achieving the necessary proportion of biofuels that the policy intended to, and so it is necessary to end the policy because it's not being effective, and this sometimes creates a vicious cycle in this process, and we have to be very aware of this and engaging in as I said, writing up some policies and some incentives, but always thinking about this perspective of doing it in a cost-effective way. But that's our main challenge.
I'll just give a response that combines the last two questions. We certainly didn't exhaust all the challenges to a bioenergy deployment and creating markets. So in addition to policy, we absolutely need policy, probably for a long time, to make the financial equation work. But in my own experience, I've realized there's not only the anti-bioenergy segment and concerns about sustainability. I think Oshada was referring to this. There's also a great lack of information, great lack of knowledge about bioenergy. It is complex, but there's just a large lack of knowledge among the broader community. There's great interest in clean technology and a net zero future, and it's easy to understand wind and solar, but there's a great amount of education that needs to be done, and among the general public, and then specifically among the financial community, because we need huge amounts of investment. And as an example, we're working hard to try to bring a broader education about the complexities, the opportunities of SAF to the financial community. And most of them just are unaware of it. They've heard of it. They think it's, it's interesting, but they just don't know much about it. So there's a huge education component that I think we need to do to make us successful.
Thank you, Jim. If we can move on to another area. In the presentations, in the previous session, we heard about huge volumes of biomass being required. We heard Jim talking about billions and billions of tons, and Oshada as well, and Jeremy talking about huge amounts. And so one of the key things is how are we going to move all this? How are we going to mobilize all this biomass? And let's face it, some of it is quite wet, quite moist. The wood has 60% water. How are we going to mobilize that to a point of conversion or a point of use? What are the challenges in that sector? Does anyone want to respond to that?
Yeah, I'll echo those challenges. It feels like a lifetime ago, but I started my career working in a cellulosic ethanol producer, or I guess an R&D company. And when we were trying to go commercial to really bring down the cost per unit, it was increasing the economies of scale. And when we looked at the logistics of the amount of trucks we needed to bring in and out of the facility, it just wasn't possible to feed the reactor. And so we started looking at different things like drying it, pre-processing it in another location, but then you're just adding more energy to the feedstock before it gets even into the process and being converted to a fuel. So I don't know if I have a great solution. Maybe also the biohubs approach, where not one company or one company is doing everything in terms of feedstock collection, transportation, and conversion, but you have, one expert that's doing the collection, that's doing, maybe some initial upgrading of that feedstock, and then transporting it to another player who is the expert in that conversion. And then maybe that's one solution, but it's a tough problem, and I'm curious to hear what the panelists have to say.
Another component to it. I mean, a key piece of this is the measurement and knowledge of these different supplies. Like some jurisdictions have great information, like the United States, but we don't always have that collectively in different areas to understand where some of those feedstock supplies may be that are easier to mobilize. We've looked a bit more closely at the liquid biofuel feedstock side and what types of things would be needed to grow that side. So I'll share some of that. I mean, there's really four main things. One is improving agricultural systems so that you're getting some of the yields across countries that are at that more efficient level. So you're actually improving some of the systems you already have in place. The second was improving the collection of things like used cooking oil and animal fats. These things already exist around the world. We use it a lot. Lots of companies have figured out the tricks of collecting it. And so sharing those practices around the world. Third piece is on marginal land and really starting to learn how to grow some of these crops on those marginal land and the business cases and models to do that in a sustainable way. And then the final one comes back to these advanced technologies. But there too, where we're seeing some of the biggest growth now is where, as you mentioned, where some of these this collection problems already been solved. So at sugar ethanol plants, for example, is where we're seeing there's something like near 30 new plants that are being planned around the world. And that's because that feedstock supply channels issue's already been solved. And so looking for those places where that problem's a bit easier.
Jim, go ahead while Christophe's speaking.
Just to expand on what Georgiadou was referring to, beyond the feedstock collection, there's the hub concept of actually doing distributed processing to intermediate levels. And so I think that's a model that needs to be fully developed, that you might get to a biocrude or a bio oil, and perhaps from a lot of different locations transfer that to an existing refurbished refinery, for example. There's a lot of merit that needs to be further explored, optimized.
I will answer in the classical way, meaning we should invest in research and innovation, and we have been doing that for years. The answer could be decentralization of parts of value chain. So as you said, we should not carry the water in long distances, and we've seen BTL plants have failed just because of that. The huge amounts of feedstock to be carried to the central place. So perhaps a way is what we have pushed forward through the work programs, the intermediate bioenergy carriers, meaning, okay, you put some energy, but perhaps with combination with other renewable energy sources, you come at a cost-efficient way of concentrating the energy in a bioenergy intermediate, and then you carry less volume and more energy to a centralized plant where the final conversion is made. And that could be, of course, customized according to the local conditions. there should be done where the feedstock is available around, and then the conversion can be done in a more central way where you don't need to have all this biomass concentrated around. But this needs again come back to the first thing that I said, it needs a strategy. A strategy taking into account national and local and regional conditions, and a lot of analysis. And of course, I would also add digitalization, new ways of seeing where's the biomass, how to mobilize it, and modernization.
Yes, one of the challenge we have is that we have both to take into consideration that we will have more biofuel and more biogas in a system where there is less fuel and less gas. And so it means that, for instance, if we look at the gas network, it means that maybe it will not be the same in the future, and the way it works will not be the same as today. And this has to be taken into consideration when you think about your strategy and the way to implement a big or small producing system.
Thank you. Marlon, you've obviously got lots of experience of moving vast quantities of biomass around to single big production facilities. Last I saw was facilities in excess of 400 million litres of ethanol production. So are there any tips you can give us around moving large quantities of biomass around in an efficient way?
Well, that's the main challenge. Yes, we believe that in order to fill the gap that Jeremy put to us regarding the needs that we have for bioenergy and biofuels for 2030 in comparison with what we have now, I think that what Maria mentioned is very important, that we need to put intelligence, we need to put R&D in order to have this the assessment of the areas in environmental, in agroecological zoning of the areas that we have around the world that are fit to produce sustainable biomass, because the demand for sustainable biomass will be enormous, will be gigantic. And in order to do that, we need to put science, we need to put efforts. We did it in Brazil with the agroecological zoning for sugarcane and for palm oil and for palm trees in the Amazon region. We have this agro zoning that is very important and define the proper and suitable areas to produce this biomass sustainably. So I think that we need to address this challenge by doing this around the areas that are suitable to produce this biomass. I think that's the best approach to engage, and not just forbidding areas or deforesting or something that is not knowing and not taking into account the reality of countries and areas around the globe that did not advance their agricultural areas and did not advance their agricultural production until now. So we have to put science in this.
Okay, thanks a lot, Marlon. We would like to open now also the floor for inputs and comments from the audience, please.
Yeah, thank you for the discussion. As an economist, I have a question about the incentive policy through the EU or other countries. Actually, there is no such policy that one size fits all, right? But in the case of EU, Corsia and CBAM and that kind of carbon reduction regulation actually can affect a lot to other countries. For example, South Korea actually have a big industry in terms of airplanes, tourism. So we concern whether we can cope with this coming very effective policy. My question is that, for example, Brazil got a CBio. So I mean the certificate policy for biofuels. Also, United States got RFS with combined with the RINS, RINS, renewable identification numbers, right? So each country has different criteria for producing biofuels. So in the case of Brazil, I heard that carbon intensity is one important criteria to give different weights or credits on the production of biofuels. Also, I think RINS also got very, various criteria. So my question is whether, so different countries got a different criteria for issuing the certificates. Then I wonder if EU will accept those different certificates from different countries, because South Korea also considers to make a certificate market for bioenergy. Yeah, this is my question.
Okay, I think that was a direct question to you, Maria.
Okay, well, for the certification, the EU has 13 voluntarily certification schemes. So these have been accepted, and then the certification should be done according to these schemes. There is a verification against this certification. So it's just the auditor looks at the certifications and this sees if it complies. So when it is done like this, the product is accepted in the EU. Now, if you wonder for the various non-harmonized, let's say, sustainability criteria that exist, I can just say that the EU issues these sustainability criteria as a result of the policies that the EU puts forward. So they have to apply, at least for SAF, if we take the example of SAF, to the fuels that are loaded in planes that are taken off from the EU airports. Now, I'm not really into the details of that, but we also participate in CORSIA, where we discuss those greenhouse gas emission savings criteria, etc., for the biofuels. But then it is on for the international, let's say, market, not for the EU market. Now, if you are wondering whether you can export biofuels to the EU, this has to be done according to the certification schemes that are in place.
Yep. Thank you. First you or for, please.
Hi guys, thanks. Zoe Harris, University of Surrey, United Kingdom. I have maybe a bit of a wide question. Georgiadou, it was really interesting to see you talk about AI in your modeling, and obviously AI is the flavor of the month. It's like the capacity it has and the capabilities are increasing massively day on day. So I was just curious, a question to the panel, do you see AI being an important part of the future of bioenergy in terms of maybe overcoming some of those technological barriers? Any thoughts?
So, who wants to respond? Are you all nodding or? Oh.
Certainly, that's a great question, and you're right. It is the flavor of month, so it is easy to say. Of course, there's no limit on what AI can do, and truth be told, that is my opinion. Our lab, Bioenergy Workshop, is doing a lot of fantastic work in this area, and I think I won't reiterate my entire presentation, but this feedstock availability is an issue that I think we need modeling and simulation. And anytime those two aspects are involved in analysis, AI just gives the ability to run countless simulations with relative ease. And I think just, the more data you can create and spit out and analyze, and the faster you can do it, it just makes it better. And even I think AI's applications in terms of conversion. So there's a lot of, analysis for the organic components of a biomass feedstock, and using AI to run those conversion pathways, or to, optimize the use of heat, pressure, acid, whatever you want to do to move that biomass to a bioenergy. I think just any type of simulation can leverage AI. And I hope to see more of it, that's for sure.
I can also share this with you that the AI has a role to play in the future. One example can be complemented that when you do co-processing, for example, of organic material with fossil material, AI can help identifying the organic carbon and then give the percentage of biofuel into the final product and then the credits, etc. And these are just small examples. Could be AI, could be also implemented in agriculture when there is a collection and the mobilization of biomass done with more modern ways and in all parts of the value chain. It is just too new for the sector, and the sector is too complex. But because if it is too complex, it has many steps in the value chain, I think AI will find its way to each of them.
Okay. Somebody want still to add, or I think key points are covered, or briefly?
Very brief. I'll just add that, of course, AI has a major role to play in increasing the efficiency of airplanes, aircraft, aerodynamics, and engine manufacturing. So they're working on their improvements as well, even though if you talk to, say, a Boeing, they will predict that the greatest portion of the greenhouse gas reductions to 2050 are still going to come from SAF as opposed to enhanced engineering. But both elements are important. But still, they see that more like 70% of the GHG reduction will come from, say, a SAF.
Thank you.
Okay, we've got a question from the online audience, and I think there was another one in the audience over there. So if we can have some very quick responses now. Is there sufficient fertile land to grow biomass for all liquid energy needs? I think some of you touched on that earlier, but do you want to respond to that question? Jeremy?
Is there enough?
Is there enough fertile land to grow all the biomass for the liquid energy needs?
Not to go into our numbers. I mean, we'll get to, for liquid biofuels, I'll just give you where we get to. We get to around 13 exajoules of liquid biofuels, which provides maybe 20% of shipping and about a third of aviation reductions. And most road is coming electrification and hydrogen. So that gives you a sense of the scale of liquid biofuel production. Doesn't fully answer your question, but close.
I'll say there probably is enough land, but bioenergy producers won't have access to that land for a bunch of reasons, starting with, the misinformation about bioenergy, but then also very valid reasons such as sustainability, encroaching on farmland, encroaching on other industries that use it for feed. So simply put, no.
Okay. Well, Maria?
Okay, this is a topic we continuously search. We issue studies and measure and remeasure, and we come to conclusions each time. I can say that because of the limitations we put in the technical potential exists, but what is the sustainable potential out of the technical potential that bioenergy can have access, as is very well said. This is, of course, limited, and that's why we put many technologies into the plate, not those that use only fertile land and crops, but for Europe now it moves to bio-waste, agricultural residues, forest residues, municipal solid waste, sewage sludge, and we put technologies like HTL, hydrothermal liquefaction, we put pyrolysis, gasification, whatever can deal with, let's say, low-grade biomass in order to cover the needs in the bioenergy role that it has to play in the energy mix.
So I think in Ashada's presentation, you talked about prioritization of biomass, and I think that's really important. What's the best use of biomass? Because I think we all know that there will be limited amount of biomass. We're not going to do all liquid fuels. We're not going to maybe do all petrol or diesel, but SAF and marine might be real hot topics, hot targets for us. So we need to prioritize how we use biomass. We did have one question over there.
Two questions, I think. Yeah.
This question is more directed to Jim. You mentioned that you are shifting the paradigm in the United States from mandates policy basically to tax incentives. So in this sense, I would like to know if you have some sort of idea at which level of the value chain you could see a bigger participation of private sectors, especially in terms of venture capital. So we know that in venture capital in the United States, a big sector, and its last years have been increasingly, it's been growing in many sectors. And I would like to know if you have seen that same trend in biofuels, and if not, why do you think there is?
Jim?
Certainly, there's a lot of venture capital going into developing conversion technologies, and some of these early first commercial plants, as well as some big corporate investors like a Microsoft or an Amazon, fortunately are coming to the table, both investing in plants as well as buying Scope 3 emissions. But we need a much wider swath of the financial community to invest in the replication and the build out of the commercial sector, for sure. So it won't be primarily venture capital doing that replication, but there again is an area where I think we need tremendous effort on educating the financial sector and bringing them into gaining interest and confidence that bioenergy is worth investing in.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. I think there's one final question here. A brief one, please.
Yeah, thank you. Daniela Trin from Helmholtz Center for Environment in Germany. My last question is, we have heard a lot about how bioenergy can combat climate change, help us in the net zero future. My question to this podium is how big do you weight the risks that climate change might bring these bioenergy strategies in this order?
Okay, I think that's a question to everybody, and maybe you could combine your answer with your concluding remarks for each of the six in the panel, if you want to combine it. Who wants to give it a start?
I'm not sure I understood the question.
Yeah, me neither. What is the question exactly?
Daniela, you have maybe some questions that have difficulty to digest your question, it seems, which is a good question.
So my question was, on the one hand side, we are clear see the need for bioenergy to contribute to the net zero future to combat climate change. On the other hand, we see there's already climate change. And my question is, how do you weight the risks that this climate change is bringing problems to the bioenergy strategies we are all discussing here? So what might be the effect of climate change for the bioenergy in 2050?
Well, so Christoph wants us to start, and I think the others are happy.
Yes, so I think it can have an impact. And the answer is for every energy and not only bioenergy. So for instance, we already see some impact on hydro. We can have impact on nuclear fleet. And it's also true for bioenergy, and it has to be taken into account. It's not easy because it can change a lot from one year to another to the other. And this is a topic where some studies and some science has to be done, because if we have a factory that 1 year can't work due to a problem on the feedstock, what happens? And is it possible to stop? Do we have to import? Not that easy, but it has to be taken into account.
I think that's a fantastic question. In Canada, there is, we have a lot of issues with forest fires, and this is only going to get more prevalent and more severe as time passes. At least that's what the forecast is. So I think that's an important component. And I think if I was going to conclude, it would be that availability and accessibility will be an issue. identification and prioritization of high impact uses are not necessary, they're mandatory. And then we need to roll out support from governments, from private industry to ensure that, you know, these bioenergies, biorefineries that have 20, 25-year lifespans will be able to be profitable for that lifespan with, you know, offtake agreements, difference in cost agreements, and just to make sure that there is economic viability for the lifespan of these plants and taking into account things like climate change.
Okay. Now, Daniela, I really understand your question, but I will give the positive answer to this, meaning that if we are talking about climate change causing forest fires, it is important to have forest management and then in place. And then this forest management creates a more sustainable potential for biomass. So it actually helps with putting in place more bioenergy into the energy mix to mitigate the climate change risks. What we need flexibility, I think. Again, I will say that we need flexibility and we need to adjust always the way we approach our energy mix with a portfolio of energies, not just technologies in a certain area, but a portfolio of energies that are climate neutral or lead to climate neutrality. And this will help us mitigate the risks at each area that will appear and when they appear each time. So by no means we have to stop our efforts in bioenergy or the other energies that are non-fossil and create climate neutrality. We should invest, but we should put them in a portfolio together with some intelligence to mitigate the risks that arrive each time.
So I agree, great question. And we're already seeing today some of these impacts. The areas that we're following closely on the agricultural production side, changes in yields and those types of things are critically important. Forest fires have already been mentioned. Even on the biogas side, just the temperatures that the plants are operating within, we've heard that from a number of different countries that changes the way they operate the plants. And so how the degree of risk will depend on the ability to adapt and the flexibility within policies to these changes. And that I don't have a good sense on. For concluding remarks, I mean, you've seen from the presentation, we're well off the path to expand bioenergy within this net zero pathway. But just in this discussion, which we have one challenge and one solution, we've basically touched on all the main barriers, and I think many of the solutions there. So we're off path, but I think we actually know a lot of the barriers and a lot of the things that need to be put in place to address them that would bring us closer to this net zero pathway. So I'll end on that more positive note.
So I think the other speakers have touched well on the impacts of climate change on biomass. And we saw a lot of those as we were trying to develop cellulosic ethanol technologies, the impact of climate on annual yields and feeds and that sort of thing. I'll just touch on a different aspect of challenges, and that is the competition among all these different technologies. We need all these different technologies, but there's going to be competition for money, for investment, competition for just pure labor to build, and skills, and material resources. So we talk about the challenge of the best use of biomass. We're going to have this challenge across the board of the best use of all these resources, and I'm not sure who can optimize that challenge across all the clean technologies, but it's a challenge we have.
Marlon, do you have a view on this, the impact of climate change on bioenergy going forward? And then if you could just give a couple of concluding remarks.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Well, this is a very important question. Well, today we are facing the most severe drought in the Amazon region in a century. We are facing really challenging situation to the access of energy and renewable energy to that region. So today we have some thermal facilities in that region that needs to produce electricity. And we are having some issues to get fuel to that region because the level of the Amazon River is too low today, and we are having a very tough situation. But more than that, I think that the climate change poses a challenge to the agricultural and a broad perspective to the whole world. And I think that we can combine the sustainability that we define. How do we define what is sustainable production of biomass? We have to combine the AI and the technology to have the assessment in a very dynamic way, because we don't know what would be an structural change in the patterns of agriculture and the patterns of climate and the patterns of rain in different areas. We don't know how this is going to be, if it is just an event or if it is a structural challenge for some regions. But we need to put science, we need to put AI, we need to put a big data perspective in order to access in a very dynamic way what is fit, what is sustainable to produce, and how it is sustainable, and how can we produce sustainably the biomass that we need. So I think we had very important questions. I agree that we don't have just one challenge, but we have many targets to reach, and we cannot give up. We need to put all the efforts that we have, the technology that we have, the knowledge that we have, in order to help each other, in order to help and to address those questions that will give the security that we are going to produce bioenergy in a sustainable way. That's my final remarks. Thank you.
Something to add?
Very quick.
Very fast on the importance of international collaboration. I was inspired from that, and it is important because we said it is a very complex area, the challenges are many, so international collaboration is important. And I'm glad to see that in next year in Sao Paulo there will be the Icarus project. The Icarus project is a Horizon Europe project where Brazil, China, India, Brazil, Canada and India participate, and this is on best practices for advanced biofuel technology deployment. And so this means that we need to share the knowledge, we need to help each other, as very well said, in promoting the technologies that can reply to the climate neutrality challenges.
Thank you very much, Maria. I totally agree. And I think everyone here would agree that international collaboration is important. That's why we're all here. So let me wrap up. First of all, thank you very much for the questions from the audience, both here and online. Really insightful questions, so thank you. I think we're going to have lunch on the first floor where you walk through, and we're going to be back here by 1:30. Is that right? But I would just like us all to thank the panelists, the five here and Marlon online. Been brilliant. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.